Hey guys, and welcome back to Franchise Nation. I am your host, Moonlightswami, and today I'm bringing you guys the remainder of the prospect spotlights as we are finishing up the regular season for Season 3. First and foremost, I'm sorry if my voice ends up cracking a little bit or if I start sounding a little bit raspy. I kind of... my voice was strained in the past 24 hours. That the Super Bowl was just unbelievable, and I'm still at a loss for words for it. So from that perspective, I'm really happy about the end result. I think it was a fantastic game as a whole. But Patriots, you gotta stop doing that to me. Just win a good game. Just go out there and just win. Don't leave any doubt with it. Please stop doing this to me. I can't take it anymore. But with that being said, we're going to start things off with the wide receiver, and the positions that we're covering today are wide receivers, defensive tackles, outside linebacker, inside linebacker, and safeties. Basically, the reason for this is that we've covered all the other positions, and the only players that I'm going to be covering are players that have draftable grades. So if a player has a grade that is in the red, where, like you can see Pete Locker, where it says he's a third-round talent, I'm still going to do it, but I'm not going to show any of the undrafted free agent potential guys because it's just not worth it. You can take a look at them on the sheet. And there are a lot of them throughout the draft, and that's kind of expected. So keep that in mind. While there might be one or two guys who could pique my interest who have that, most of them do not. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. We are going to take a look first. Here are our projected draft picks. Second round, third round, fourth round, 3 fifth-rounders, a sixth, and a seventh. So essentially we're starting off in the third round, which, you know, it's kind of expected after we made the move to get Michael Wong, and he's been so good for us. So I'm okay with that, but it also means that we have to be a bit smarter with our picks. Starting things off is Pete Locker out of Michigan State, Early first round, projected mid-third round talent. Good catch in traffic, good catching, good route running, 6'1", 216, he's a possession guy. And one of the things worth noting, this wide receiver class is stacked with older players. 8 of the 24 guys who have a projected draftable grade or projected to be drafted are 23 or 24 years old. So that means that 8 are 22. And none are 21. So it's an older group, but that does bode well for some teams. Next up is my number one wide receiver in this class, Jameel Stubblefield. 6'5", out of Tennessee. He's a red zone threat. Early first for both A- spectacular catch, B catch in traffic. He is going to be a stud of a wide receiver. Next up is Tyler Gunn, 5'11", out of Wisconsin, 24 years old. He's a route runner mid-first, B route running, B catch in traffic, B- catching, but a little bit smaller than Locker. Definitely could be faster, but Tyler Gunn seems like a pretty solid player in the mid-first. I like that there are a lot of wide receivers who are projected to go early because that means that some of the better positions that we need will be able to fall to us. Next up is Mylan Carson, out of Nebraska, 24 years old, a late first rounder, 5'10", 182. He's a speed guy, B release, B- route running, B- spectacular catch. Bit of a concerning thing that there's no actual catching traits, being catch or catch in traffic, but we'll see. After that is Mike Tuitt, out of Oregon, 6'3", 202, at 24 years old, another late first guy. Balanced, B+ release, B spectacular catch, B- catching. Seems like a pretty solid player. Pretty straightforward. After that is Kelvin Surton, 6'6", 220 out of Florida State at 22 years old. An early second rounder, B+ spectacular catch, B+ catching, B catch in traffic as a red zone threat. It seems like he's probably going to be a little bit slower than Stubblefield, but both of them are going to be really good players. After that, we have Kier Newkirk, who is a projected mid-second rounder. And it seems that he actually dropped. He was someone who was projected to be a mid-first rounder at some point. But he is a mid-second rounder, B release, B spectacular catch, B- catch in traffic as a speed threat out of northern Iowa. After him, we have AJ Thurman, who is a mid-third rounder with early 7th talent, B- catching, C+ spec catch, C+ catch in traffic as a speed guy, 5'10", 23 years old, out of New Hampshire. Following him, we have Nico Sasser, 24 years old, 5'9", out of Idaho. A route runner is a projected mid-third. B+ catching, B+ route running, B release. Smaller guy, but a very savvy one. Definitely will be interesting to see what his 40 time and his 3-cone and stuff are. After him, we have a bit of a gap. We have Derwin Fleming out of Columbia, late 4th rounder with late 6th talent. He's a route runner, 5'10", 188. B- catching, C+ route running, C+ catch and traffic. He's an alright player. Nothing too special about him. After that, we have Rashad Maxey, a possession guy out of Purdue. B+ catch and traffic, B catching, B- route running at 22 years old, 6'2", 218, an early 7th rounder. And the last wide receiver that we're going to look at is Rashad Pinnock, 6'1", 223, out of Tulsa, 24 years old, a late 7th rounder. He's a possession guy, B+ catch and traffic, B- catching, C+ spectacular catch. Alright, on to defensive tackles, and there aren't that many that are really talented. There is one who is not on the board. His name is Victor Melvin, and I believe he suffered an injury. I'm not positive why, but he's no longer on the board. He is somebody that we are going to look at if he does end up making it to the combine or any of that sort of thing, because if I do remember correctly, he was a talented player. I don't have any information on him, though, which is the only unfortunate thing. Victor Melvin ruptures pectoral in losing effort, so that's why he's not on the list. Just like DeMarco Hanoian, that when guys disappear, they do add some intrigue, so I'm going to be interested to see what he actually brings to the table if he does show up. We're going to start things off with Otha Moncrief. As I said, this is a pretty old draft class as a whole. Late 1st rounder out of Alabama, 6'6", 308. He's a run stopper at 24 years old. B+ block shed, B- pursuit, B- hit power. That's still a good player, especially up the middle. After him, we have DeMichael Lemon, late 2nd round projected, late 7th talent, 6'3", out of Florida State. He's a prototype, C+ tackle, C+ hit power, C power moves. 23 years old, not that good. And then we have obviously a pretty big gap. Stanley McKee is next, 6'4", 296, at 22 years old, out of Michigan, late 3rd rounder with late 4th potential, balanced, B- pursuit, C+ hit power, C power moves. Nothing too special. After that, we start to get into the range where we do find some guys who could be intriguing. We have Dustin Olson, an early 4th rounder out of Ohio State. He's a nose tackle, 6'3", 332 at 23 years old. B- pursuit, C+ hit power, C+ tackling. Rodriguez Rayner, right there with him, balanced, 6'1", 286 out of Florida, 22 years old, late 4th. B- pursuit, C+ tackle, C+ hit power. After him, it's Eric Eldridge out of Miami, late 5th with late 7th talent as a pass rusher. C+ pursuit, C+ power move, C+ tackle. 6'1", 293 at 23 years old. Not bad. DJ Sharp is another pass rusher. He's from USC, mid-7th rounder. 22 years old, 6'1", 304, C+ pursuit, C+ tackle, C+ power moves. And the last guy, he's really intriguing. Jason Clinton, 6'7", 321 at 24 years old, out of Pitt. He's a nose tackle. A late 7th rounder, B- tackling, B- hit power, B- pursuit. The fact that he is 6'7", and has those stats as a late 7th rounder is really intriguing. And I'd probably be hard-pressed not to at least consider him with our late round selections. And then, of course, Victor Melvin. So on to middle linebackers. Yeah, there's nobody. Literally nobody. Every single middle linebacker is undrafted free agent talent. But this one guy looked interesting. Brian Regis, early 6th rounder with undrafted potential. He's a 3-4 tackler out of New Hampshire, 6'2", 245 at 21 years old. A- hit power, B- tackling, C+ pursuit. I mean, when you have nothing in terms of talent across the board, when the best trait that anybody has outside of him is B- for block shedding or tackling or pursuit, he's kind of interesting. I mean, I'd at least consider him as a late round pick if we do need another linebacker. On to left outside linebacker, and this is kind of in the same breath. There are not a ton of good linebackers as a whole. We start things off with Zach Nielsen out of Georgia Southern. He's a cover 2 guy, late 3rd with late 7th talent. C+ zone, C+ finesse, C hit power, 6', 243. An interesting player. That combination of coverage and finesse move definitely could make him useful on the edge. After that, Ray Cadet seems pretty solid. Late 4th rounder with late 6th talent. Cover 2 guy out of Indiana State, 6'2", 235. B- tackling, B- finesse move, B- hit power. Seems pretty solid off the edge. And then we start getting into some of the more interesting guys. He's a 3'4", pass rusher, Paul Summers, early 5th rounder, 6'4", 263 from San Diego State. B power moves, B- hit power, C+ pursuit. Jorian Dumas, a late 6th rounder out of Nevada, 3'4" pass rusher, 6'2", 250. B power moves, B- hit power, C+ pursuit. And then we have Shamar Murdoch, mid 7th rounder out of Ohio State. He's a prototype with no real top skill. 6'2", 228 at 23 years old. Seems like he'll be a guy who flies around, but I don't know. He's not someone who we're particularly looking at. On to right outside linebackers. Tyson Reese seems like a pretty solid player. B+ hit power, B- block shed, B- pursuit at 6'2", 225 at 23 years old. He's a late 2nd rounder out of Ole Miss. They love producing these guys. But having him on that edge along with Shad Houston would be terrifying depending on how fast he runs. As a late 2nd rounder, might fall right into our lap, honestly, if we can't get a good corner or safety that we're looking at. Next up is Gilbert Dishman. 6'2", 225, 22 years old out of BYU. He's a cover 2 guy. B- finesse move, C+ hit power, C+ zone coverage. That's a solid player right there. After that, we have Jeffrey Briscoe out of Iowa State, 3'4" pass rusher. B power moves, B- hit power, B- pursuit, a late 3rd rounder with early 6th talent. Seems like he's a little bit better than that, but his other stats must be bringing him down. Everett Forston, 21 years old, out of SMU, a cover 2 guy, mid 4th with late 6th talent, 6'1", 239, B- tackling, C+ hit power, C+ finesse moves. James Hamlin is the last outside linebacker, 6'2", 236 at 23 years old, out of Wisconsin. He's a cover 2 guy, C+ hit power, C+ finesse, C+ zone coverage. Mid 6th rounder, mid 7th talent. Now we're going to start taking a look at free safeties, and the free safety class, or safety class in general, is really solid. Starting things off with Lavian Sowell. Late 1st rounder, 6 foot, 219, 22 years old, out of Wisconsin as a run support guy. B+ hit power, B pursuit, C+ tackling. After that, it's Sean Whitehurst, late 2nd rounder with late 4th talent, 6'4", 205 out of Louisville. He's a prototype, C+ tackling, C+ hit power, C+ zone coverage. Honestly, we're probably looking for a big hitter, so guys like Whitehurst probably wouldn't be on our board, per se. Next up is Dre Cockrell, 6'1", 216 out of New Mexico, 22 years old. He's a run support guy, B+ hit power, C+ tackle, C pursuit. Patrick Blackshear out of Southern Miss, 21 years old, mid 4th rounder, 6'3", 212, prototype, C+ hit power, C tackle, C- zone coverage. After that, it's Braxton Yates, 5'10", 203 from Boston College. He's a zone guy, B hit power, B- zone, C- tackling. He might be pretty good. Moses Torrance, late 4th rounder out of New Mexico. He's a run support guy, 6'1", 22 years old, A- hit power, C pursuit, C tackling. Levon Lyons, late 5th rounder, 6'3", 222 out of Lambeth. A run support guy, A- hit power, C zone, C pursuit. Up next, we have Barry Carty, an early 6th rounder out of Cal, with late 7th round talent, 6'4", 209, C+ hit power, C zone, C tackling. Xavier Overstreet, kind of in the same boat out of Boise State, 5'11", 205, 22 years old. He's a playmaker, C+ hit power, C pursuit, C tackling, early 7th rounder. And lastly, Devin Sutherland, out of Iowa State, 21 years old, 6'1", 204. He's balanced, B hit power, C+ tackle, C+ pursuit. On to the strong safeties. Linval Bunkley, 6'4", 202 at 22 years old, out of Tennessee. He's a zone guy, B zone, C+ pursuit, C+ tackle. Doesn't have the hit power that I'd like. Taylor Teal, though, a USC prototype, mid-1st rounder, 6'4", 212, A- hit power, B pursuit, C zone coverage. Looks pretty solid. But here's the guy that if we could get anybody in the safety class, it would be Silas Potter. Late 1st out of Ole Miss, shocker, 6 foot, 227 at 22 years old. He's a run support guy, A- hit power, B- pursuit, B- tackling. I mean, this guy looks like he's just going to be a stud, period. Up next is Julius Lloyd out of Louisville. Early second rounder with late first talent. I mean, that's a good player right there. He is a guy who showcases B+ hit power, B- pursuit, B- tackling. I mean, that's a good player right there, honestly. That's a early second rounder. Gonna be a steal for somebody. Jamarcus Overton is next, mid-third out of Akron, early fifth talent, B- zone, C+ hit power, C- tackling. Vondre Ali out of Pitt, 6'3", 213, mid-fourth rounder with mid-third talent. A lot of these guys are kind of rising up the boards, which is pretty interesting. He's a prototype, C+ hit power, C+ tackles, C zone coverage. Santiago Dotson out of USC, 6'3", 221, 22 years old, prototype, B- hit power, C zone, C+ tackling. Foley Griffin, early fourth with late fourth talent, Arizona, runs support, 6'3", 217 at 23 years old, A- hit power, C pursuit, C- tackling. And lastly, we have Ikeem Walton, 5'10", 209 at 24 years old out of Tulane. Mid-fifth rounder with late fourth talent, and he is a playmaker. So, with all of the needs that our team has in general, I feel like if there's anybody that we can actually get, Barry Ruffin is still interesting to me at 6'4" as a corner. He shows good enough stats. Then you have other guys like Nate Burgess is a really good player right above him out of Texas A&M. I don't know. It's going to be tough. DeMarco Hanoyan is definitely going to be an interesting player as well, seeing where he falls. Sat out for academic reasons, but he was a good player, if I remember correctly. You know, there are a lot of things that we do need to address in this offseason. I think that our offensive line continues to need to grow, but we do need a right tackle. And looking at the right tackles on the board, there are some who have talent a little bit later. Kendall Goff is a pretty good one. We might see something out of some other guys. We have right guard, or different players. Left guard, Raphael Ragland, who looks pretty interesting as a zone blocker. So, we have to be careful. We don't want to lose out on guys who we think are really good. But we have a long way to go. We still have the entire postseason to look at. There's Kendall Goff with good stats. So that's pretty much it for the prospect spotlight. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm Moonlightswami, and week 17 will be coming to you guys on Wednesday. Peace!